I like to have the motto of progress, not perfection. Perfection has this angelic utopian vibe that sure we can strive for, but the aura around it seems to me to be impossible and out of my realm to achieve this status. Making a goal doesn't mean that we are striving for perfection. That isn't the goal. It's this idea of perfection that gets us in trouble, the one that we write a story but can't publish it unless it's perfect. We want to play the piano perfectly, which you can hear that I'm most certainly not doing. We want to eat perfectly, to have the perfect body, the perfect house. Putting that expectation on ourselves puts constraints on living. We don't have to put such strict guidelines on ourselves because even if we reach that uppermost limit of perfection, we're going to want to push the bar higher, especially for us overachievers and goal setters. We're always going to want to push that limit and go for the next steps. So if we take that word perfection out of it, lift some of those constrictions, we can take some of the pressure off of reaching this expectation of perfection from our goals. This expectation of being perfect gives us that all or nothing mentality, that we can't even begin our goal because if we can't be perfect at it, why even try? Instead, we can shift our focus on our actions and the end goal being good enough. This good enough allows us a more reachable goal of realizing that even if we were to reach some of our goal, that is leveling up our lives. This in turn leads us to believe in ourselves, to believe that it is possible to reach the next steps of our goals. It also allows us to celebrate the milestones along the way. Seeing this progress, being in the progress, and praising ourselves for making it each step of the way keeps us going instead of us saying, well, it's not perfect, so I need to keep pushing to get there, or ultimately just giving up. Comment below if you resonate with this, because I think this idea for perfection and striving for everything to be perfect is what can stop us from even getting started. If we do get started, once we're in the goal and we're in the process, if we're not seeing perfect results or even huge leaps and bounds with our success, it can be discouraging and we can just give up. Even trying to do this voiceover perfectly has put a strain on actually doing this video because I kept thinking, what if I fumble over my words or make a mistake, or what if I don't really say what I want to say on here? So how do we get over this word of perfection? There's a quote by Voltaire that says, "Don't let perfect be the enemy of good." It's one of my favorite quotes, and I've heard it said in a different way. Don't let the idea of perfection get in the way of being good enough. I literally have this written on the board in my exercise room. I read it every time I'm doing a workout with the idea of trying to be kind and forgiving to myself, even though my results aren't perfect, if there is such a thing. It reminds me that I am doing a good enough job just by showing up. It shows me that showing up is me going after this goal. And I need to not only be okay with that, I need to allow it to fill me with the praise and the peace needed to continue on. But focusing on the process of improvement instead of the drive to be perfect is what's going to keep us going. I think the answer to the question, can we have a 100% perfect life, is no. And I definitely don't think that's a bad thing. It doesn't mean that we can't be happy with where we are right now. It just means that we can make goals to better ourselves. That this not being 100% perfect is where we get the drive for personal growth. That's where we get the drive to be better and kind of be the best versions of ourselves that we can be. That doesn't have to be striving for perfection. It doesn't have to be a stressful process or one where we put ourselves down. It means we're at this starting point, and I'd like to be a step or two down the road, closer to the person who I want to be. Notice I didn't say closer to being the perfect version of me, because as we go through life, aren't we always evolving and changing our circumstances and environment? When we're working on personal growth, the goal should be to be a little bit better from where we are right now. I'm coming out here playing the piano, knowing that I'm going to make 100 mistakes. And that's honestly what I need to do to get back to my piano practice. It's not thinking that I'm going to practice and then all of a sudden I'm going to be perfect. I was allowing this idea, though, of not being perfect at playing to stop me from doing this thing that I once loved. The further I got from it, the more time that passed, I was further perpetuating the idea of failure, because every day that went by, I was getting more and more disconnected from this goal. I played for a half an hour at this session. It was far from perfect, but what I gained wasn't only taking that first step. It reinvigorated my love for this hobby. It got me started on this path that I've wanted to go down for years now. Later that night after I played, I searched for new songs, I dug out my old books, and I kept the tune alive. Trying to be perfect means that we aren't allowed to make mistakes. Mistakes are what help guide us to the path we're supposed to be on. If something doesn't work out, we go a different way. If we make a mistake, we change our ways to do something different. We are supposed to make mistakes as sort of our navigation pane to guide us to where we need to be. Mistakes are how we learn and kind of have some aha moments in that process. The areas we make mistakes to help to develop us further, because these are the areas we need to take steps on improving in. Let's take my author ambitions. I didn't write my books for years because I was afraid they wouldn't be good enough, that they wouldn't be perfect. The burning desire to write my stories and to get my books out into the world won, thank goodness, and I wrote my first book 4 years ago. I edited it over 30 times, thinking this next edit will bring it to the state of perfection, that I wouldn't have any errors, the characters would be perfect, and the story itself wouldn't have a flaw in sight. Still, even after 30 edits, it didn't feel perfect. Then I realized something. I could edit my books to eternity. With a 90,000 word count, there's an infinite amount of ways the words could be rearranged. So, was I going to allow this idea of perfection to get in the way of my dreams? Would I allow it to stop me from publishing my books? Ultimately, no, I didn't allow it to stop my progress. I published that first book, and what happened was I realized the world didn't end because I might have had some flaws in my book. I was still able to achieve this goal even though I don't think it was perfect. Getting over this idea of being perfect allowed me to continue my writing journey and write several more books. Ultimately, every time I wrote, every time I edited, propelled me to progress, not to be perfect, but to get better at this goal and get better at this skill. So here I am starting this new goal of mine to once again get good at playing the piano, even though it's horribly out of tune right now. It's been years since I've been serious about this hobby. This last song was my last piano recital piece. I once could play this song really well, and oh, did I think about cutting this out of the video. Sure, I cut some cringe-worthy parts out of here to save your ears, But ultimately, I'm glad that I'm getting back into it. I've never been a perfect piano player. I've never been the best player in the world, and I never will be. Still, I'm not allowing that to steal my joy I have in sitting in front of the keys, bringing the black dots to life. I made so many mistakes while playing these songs today, and I need to ask you, did you even notice? Did you care? Did you enjoy listening? Did it bring back memories of when you've heard these songs or maybe played them yourselves? I'm hoping that this will inspire you to start your own goals and to leave the idea of being perfect, at being a perfect person and being perfect at your goals. Just leave that behind. Today, I wasn't perfect, but I did make progress.